Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As I mentioned before, my name is Chad Novak, and I am here representing the Saskatchewan Taxpayers Advocacy Group, which is a grassroots organization proudly standing up for the rights of individual taxpayers. The first item that I would like to address this evening is in regards to the 2016 property tax exemptions for properties that were included in the approved November 2013 boundary alterations. Now, a common theme you're going to hear from me this evening in my next three delegations is the concept of providing fair and equitable treatment of all taxpayers of Regina. Now, to that extent, I feel strongly that the overall concept of tax exemptions for properties brought into the city boundaries is fair to an extent, as it can be quite a jump in property taxes going from the RM to a city the size of Regina. Now, with that said, the question becomes just how much is fair, for how long, and, most importantly, should it make a difference if the property owner did not want to be annexed versus those that had explicitly requested to be annexed? Based on my research, the general consensus is that the exemption amount and the time contained within this framework is more than fair, where the amount and length of exemption is dependent upon the anticipated timeline of when the affected lands may be used for city purposes rather than RM purposes. However, there is serious concern amongst taxpayers regarding property owners that specifically requested to be annexed versus those that were annexed against their wishes, as well as differentiating between commercial and residential property owners. Also, and we can't stress this enough, the ability to pay should be a major factor. And like his policy for other city services, it is felt that any affected property owners should certainly have to demonstrate that the additional property taxes will cause unreasonable financial hardship as a result of the annexation. And in fact, this very clause was included within this policy, as you will see in Appendix A. We would be remiss not to mention, we would be remiss to not mention the fact that according to real estate experts, the mere act of annexation immediately increases the affected property's value because of the fact that they are now within city jurisdiction and have access to city services. Now, keeping this in mind, it is a fact that a major property owner east of Tower Road very quickly flipped some of their affected lands to the province for the Regina bypass and to the city for the Pacers Ballpark relocation for upwards of 10 times the value that they were immediately prior to annexation. This was with absolutely no physical improvement by that property owner. Further on the concept of unreasonable financial hardship, it seems only reasonable that a homeowner who has lived in an RM for decades should be considered more so for relief from the additional property taxes versus, say, a giant multi-million-dollar corporation who explicitly requested to be annexed into the city for undisclosed reasons, who ought to have anticipated and budgeted for the additional property taxes. Any reasonable person would argue that they most certainly have the ability to afford the higher taxes, even before taking into account the financial benefits that they realized because of their annexation. As you can see in Appendix B, one of these companies publicly traded AGT Foods on East Primrose Drive, which is amongst a group of companies associated with Alliance Pulse Processors, Long Lake Investment, and I'll axe that last one on there because I don't think that that is actually related to those companies, is set to receive over $80,000 in property taxes exemptions this year alone. Now, we factored that over the anticipated 15-year lifespan of this exemption, barring any other further extensions. That translates to over $1.2 million in lost property tax revenue to the City of Regina, and in turn to its residents. Now, for a company with annual revenues nearing $2 billion, thank you, sir. According to, as outlined in Appendix C, I would hardly consider them to have realized any unreasonable financial hardship due to an annexation. It is also very important to note that the aforementioned properties were never previously included in any long-term 25-year official community plans prior to 2013. And the question that a reasonable person then would have to ask, why then were these lands annexed into the city, and why did we not stick to the 25-year plans as previously designed up to 2011? Thank you for your time this evening, and I will gladly answer any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
So a lot of information there, and I appreciate you taking the time to do something good. I think at the heart of it is that you should take someone's ability to pay
I think that's a key factor because that's what we consistently do with other policies in terms of, say, for example, freedom of information requests. We ask for a person's ability to pay that. Will it cause unreasonable financial hardship? It's even outlined here specifically in this property tax exemption. Will it cause undue financial hardship? So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask each affected property owner, especially the ones that ask to be annexed, can you afford the difference? Maybe we can negotiate a better thing, because we have to remember that every dollar that they get exempted, you and I have to make up for.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.